Hey guys, Shinylocke here. Have you guys ever thought to yourself, dang, I really want to be not happy? Well boy do I have the series for you. Danganronpa is a series where 15 students are trapped in a school with a weird talking bear and the only way to leave is to kill another student. So there's going to be a lot of deaths of characters you really like and you will be in pain for a long time. Along with that, after every murder, there is an investigation period followed by a class trial where you have to reveal the identity of the killer or everyone else but the killer will die. But when you do find the killer, there is a very gruesome execution afterwards. As of the recording of this video, there are 3 mainline Danganronpa games, and I'm going to review each of them starting with the first one, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc today. I'm going to give a very brief rundown of each chapter and give my thoughts of it starting with the prologue. The game opens with the execution of who you later find out is Jin Kirigiri, called Blastoff. And I'm just gonna say, this is probably my favorite execution in the game. Overall, I think the executions in this game aren't as good as later games in my opinion, especially V3. But that being said, Blastoff and the 1000 Blows are really good executions. After that, you're introduced to Makoto Naegi, who's the main character of the game. By a lottery, he got accepted into Hope's Peak Academy, which is a school where people who excel at a certain thing go to school and they're called ultimate students. Because he got in by lottery, Makoto was the ultimate lucky student. But things get bad the second you step into the school because you immediately black out and wake up in a classroom where the windows are bolted shut and there are security cameras everywhere. You then find the main hall of the school where you are introduced to all the other students in your class who are the ultimates. Sayaka Mizono, the ultimate pop sensation. Junko Enoshima, the ultimate fashionista. Leon Kuwata, the ultimate baseball star. Chihiro Fujisaki, the ultimate programmer. Mondo Owada, the ultimate biker gang leader. Kiyotaka Ishimura, the ultimate moral compass? What does that mean? Celestia Ludenberg, the ultimate gambler. Sakura Ogami, the ultimate martial artist. Aoi Asahina, the ultimate swimmer. Byakuya Togami, the ultimate affluent progeny. No clue what that one means either, honestly. Toko Fukawa, the ultimate writing prodigy. Also the ultimate serial killer, but we'll get into that later. Yasuhiro Hagakure, the ultimate clairvoyant. And finally, Kyoko Kirigiri, the ultimate detective. As you can tell, there are a lot of characters, so I'm gonna go through my opinions of them really fast. Makoto is alright, Sayaka's amazing, we'll return to Junko. Leon's bad, Chihiro's great, Mondo's great, Ishimura's great. Celeste is good, Sakura is great, Asahina is great, Byakuya is great, Toko's not great in this game, Yasuhiro's alright, and Kyoko's good. After you meet everyone, you're called to the gym where there's a black and white bear named Monokuma, and he tells you that the only way to leave the school is to disturb the peace. That means to kill someone. He can also blow up, and that's kinda scary if you ask me. This is where the prologue ends, and overall, I think it's a very good opening to the game to get you interested, and it's really good exposition. It gets you interested in all the characters and Hope's Peak immediately, and it also starts with a really cool execution. I really don't have a lot to say about it because of how short it is, but I will definitely have more to say about all the chapters, so let's move into chapter 1. At the beginning of chapter 1, everyone agrees to meet in the dining hall in the morning to discuss things. At this point in the game, 2 important things happen. 1, Celeste says that they should make a rule not to go out during nighttime. In my opinion, this is a stupid plot point because there's no way for them to enforce it, and someone new breaks the rule every 5 seconds anyway, but everyone's still shocked when it happens, like it's physically impossible for them to go out at night when they can just leave their room. The second main thing that happens is that Makoto becomes very good friends with the ultimate pop sensation Sayaka Mizono. Basically, you find out that Makoto and Sayaka went to the same middle school and they bond over that and become friends even though they're in this terrible situation. However, Monokuma wants a murder to happen, and to do this, he gives everyone a video that shows that something happened to their loved ones so that they will feel the need to leave. Sayaka gets hit super hard by this and you have to go find her and tell her that everything will be okay and you'll help her escape the school. The next night, Sayaka comes to your room saying that she heard weird noises outside her door and wants to switch rooms for the night. You do that, but the next morning when you wake up and go to the cafeteria, someone is missing, and it's none other than Yasuhiro Hagakure. Just kidding, it was Sayaka. So after your heart is ripped out, you're told about class trials, and as Monokuma is telling you all of this, Junko says that she doesn't want to do it and attacks Monokuma, which is against the rules. So Monokuma kills her. In a class trial, every living student has to try to solve the murder and find out who did it. But before all that, you have to investigate things around the school, like these numbers 11037 behind Sayaka's body. I wonder what that could mean. During the class trial, you find out that the killer is Leon, surprising absolutely nobody. But you also find out that Sayaka tried to kill Leon first and frame Makoto for murder so she could escape the school, but Leon killed her in self-defense. Everyone hates her for this, but here's my thoughts. So first things first, I don't think most of the Danganronpa murderers are bad people. We'll get to you later. Given the circumstance they are put in and all the motives Monokuma gives them, while I don't think it's justified, I don't think they're bad people. I'm not trying to defend murder, but I just don't think they're bad people for doing it in this situation. Also, at the time, Sayaka didn't know about class trials, so she didn't know that she would be killing more than just one person if she got away with it. So I don't necessarily hate her for it. I also just think she's a really well-written character because she's the perfect opening to the series, and other than Monokuma, I think she represents what Danganronpa is pretty well. The only other non-mastermind character that I can say this about would be the first Black in the V3, but I won't get into that to avoid spoilers. After you find out that Leon is the killer, his execution, the 1000 blows, is immediately after. And as I said before, I really like this execution. I've always liked how the first executions of each game grab the Blackened by the neck and drag them away, and I've never understood why they don't do this for all the other executions. In this chapter, you're also introduced to free time events where you get to hang out with other students, and I really like this mechanic because they make the deaths hit harder because you won't be able to hang out with a character again if they die. You also get introduced to the class trial mechanics in this chapter, and I think that class trials are really fun, especially non-stop debates. This also feels like a good time to just mention how amazing the soundtrack is in this game. It's composed by Masafumi Takada, and every song is just so good. Some of my favorites are New World Order, Climax Reasoning, Mr. Monokuma's Lesson, Discussion Heat Up, and the Execution theme. I could go on about how much I love each and every song in this game, and that would be good enough to fill a video on its own. It's just so good. That wraps up my thoughts of chapter 1, and from here on out, I'm gonna go a little bit faster through the chapters just to keep this video from being too long. In chapter 2, the motive is that everyone has a secret, and if there's not a murder soon, Monokuma's gonna leak all the secrets, oh no! Everyone sees this and says, no one's gonna murder anyone over this, it's such a bad motive, and then Chihiro's dead the next morning. After investigating, you find out that Mondo killed Chihiro, and that Chihiro is actually a boy, and that was his secret. Mondo's secret was that he caused the death of his brother, and when Chihiro went to embrace his secret after he knew it would be leaked, Mondo got mad that someone else was able to come to terms with their secrets, and he killed Chihiro out of rage. This is also the chapter where you find out that Toko has a split personality and is secretly a serial killer named Genocide Jack. That was weird. Earlier in the chapter, you also see Mondo and Ishimaru become great friends, which only makes the class trial hurt more. After everyone finds out who the killer is, and he admits it, Ishimaru refuses to accept it and even votes for the wrong person. Of course, after the trial, there's Mondo's execution, the Cage of Death, which is an alright execution. It's not as good as the 1000 blows or blasts off, but hey, you get Mondo butter, so that's a pass from me. Although, if I'm being honest, overall, I think this chapter is weaker than the first chapter. You do get some great character moments with Ishimaru and Mondo, and the game is really good at making you feel sad at the end of the class trial, but it did not hit me nearly as hard as Sayaka did. You do get some great things out of this chapter, however, such as Byakuya defacing a corpse for fun, constant discourse on Twitter over Chihiro's gender instead of people appreciating him for being a cool character, and gay people. In the beginning of chapter 3, you find this weird computer with an AI made by Chihiro on it called Alter Ego. Alter Ego uses an AI with Mondo's personality to talk to a very depressed Ishimaru, which makes him happy again. And his hair white for some reason. At this point, Hifumi and Ishimaru start fighting over Alter Ego, and this just feels really forced. This is my least favorite chapter in the game. A lot of the writing just feels very forced and bad. Anyway, a few days later, you find Celeste hurt and she said she got attacked by someone in a robot suit and they dragged Hifumi away. You look for them and you find Hifumi dead, and then keep looking around the school and find Ishimaru dead. You then find that Hifumi is still alive and says the name Yasuhiro before dying for real this time. In the class trial, it's revealed that Celeste planned the whole thing and had Hifumi kill Ishimaru, and then she killed Hifumi. The person in the robot suit was Hagakure, who was asleep the whole time somehow. Now you might be asking, what about when Hifumi said Yasuhiro? Well, it turns out that Celeste's real name isn't Celestia Ludenberg, it is Taiko Yasuhiro, which again, as something you will see a lot within this chapter, and something I have probably said like 20 times, it feels very forced. Why didn't Hifumi just say Celeste or Ludenberg? There was absolutely zero reason for him to say anything other than that. At least you get this great moment out of it.
How many times do I have to tell you? My name is Celestia Ludenberg, god damn it!
The murder plan in this chapter is also pretty stupid in my opinion. The motive was dumb, kinda really hurt Celeste's character, making me not like her as much. There was no reason 2 people had to die in this chapter. The execution is just alright in my opinion. Everything just feels so bad in this chapter. Also, in my opinion, as a murderer, Celeste is easily the worst of the Case 3 murderers, but I won't get into that now to avoid spoilers. There's one more major problem I have with this chapter, and that's how they handled Ishimaru. Throughout the beginning of the game, he isn't really friends with many of the other students and he isn't that really well liked. But then he finds a friend in Mondo and he seems truly happy. But then, as we all know, Mondo is ripped away from him not long after. And it's heartbreaking. You see him cry and it hurts and you feel really bad for him, and that opens him up to so much more character development. But then in chapter 3, they just throw all that out of the window. They take all this potential character development and just ignore it and make him a stupid hybrid of Mondo and Ishimaru and then immediately kill him off. It really keeps him from being a top tier character to me. Like, I love Ishimaru and all, but he just doesn't get the development he deserves. I know they fixed this problem in later games, especially in 2, which I won't get into yet because of spoilers, but that doesn't make this any better in my eyes. While I do think chapter 3 is the weakest, I do actually really love the ending. Kyoko shows you a secret room with a ton of weird books in it, and then you get attacked by some person in a mask, and then you find out that Sakura is a spy for the mastermind. This was a really good setup for the conflict in chapter 4, and it hooked me back in to play more. Chapter 4 starts with Monokuma revealing to everyone that Sakura is a mole because she was trying to rebel against him. This leads to everyone not trusting Sakura, obviously, except Asahina trying to defend her. This also leads to Kyoko being mad at Makoto because he knew and didn't tell anyone. Sakura invites Yasuhiro, Byakuya, and Toko, who are the most distrusting of her, to the rec room to make peace with them. While all this is happening, Kyoko has Makoto hook up Alter Ego to the internet in the secret room in order to obtain information. But after you do that, you and Asahina find Sakura dead in the rec room. I really like this class trial because it feels like the only one, other than stupid 11037 over here, that you're able to figure out on your own before the trial. The stuff that happened also isn't too outlandish beside all the Genocide Jack stuff. It's revealed throughout the trial that when Sakura invited them, both Toko and Hagakure thought that Sakura would hurt them and attacked her. Byakuya just didn't go. And they both think that they killed her. But what you find out is that Sakura committed suicide because she thinks it was the only way for her to make peace. But Asahina found Sakura and tried to frame it on the people who met with her because she thinks that everyone deserves to die for making Sakura feel that way. The only problem I have with this chapter is Asahina's reasoning for doing this, but even with that, this is probably my favorite chapter in the game, up there with 1. It's very well rounded and I just really like it. After the trial, since Monokuma can't execute one of the students, Monokuma executes Alter Ego, which comes as a huge shock to everyone because they didn't think that Monokuma would know about it. Overall, this execution isn't really anything special, but it doesn't really matter because 1, it's only really there for the shock factor of Monokuma knowing that Alter Ego exists, and 2, this chapter is just so good anyway that a bad execution won't really hurt it. This is also where you start to realize how little students there are left, with there only being 6 left. You also get introduced to
Mukuro Ikusaba. Mukuro Ikusaba, the 16th student, lying hidden somewhere in this school. The one they call the ultimate despair.
which, although it's a bit of a meme now, it's a great way to set up the next chapter with how much suspense you're left with. And now we move on to chapter 5, and I'm just gonna say this chapter is a lot. I honestly didn't know what to say about this chapter for a long time. It's really confusing. Chapter 5 starts with a flash forward to the death of this chapter and then flashes back. Makoto gets pretty sick and spends most of his time in bed, but when he wakes up he sees someone in a mask standing over him. He then dozes off again, but the next time he wakes up he sees Kyoko standing over him and then dozes off again. The next morning, Makoto, Byakuya, Toko, Hagakure, and Asahina find a dead body with a mask on, but Kyoko is nowhere to be found. Toko tries to take the mask off the body, but the body blows up on contact and it becomes unidentifiable. Everyone then assumes that the dead body is Kyoko because she is the only one missing. But when you all go to the class trial, Kyoko meets you there and is still alive, obviously. Kyoko tells you that the reason she couldn't be found was because she stole a master key to the building and was investigating the second floor of the dormitory. Throughout the whole trial, everyone is suspicious of Kyoko and is told that the dead person was Mukuro Ikusaba. This is around the time where you have to make an important decision. Kyoko says a lie that is obvious to you, and you have the option to reveal the lie or to ignore it. One leads to the bad ending, and one leads to the good ending. So let's take a look at the bad ending first. If you choose to reveal the lie, you get the bad ending, and in the bad ending, the black end of the trial is determined to be Kyoko, and then she gets executed in the execution after school lesson. We will get to what I think of this execution later. But after that happens, it's explained that the school was peaceful after that, and everyone lived there for the rest of their lives. Also, Asahina became the mother to everyone's child, and Toko died? Overall, the bad ending is really funny to me, and I hate that they never made bad endings for the other games. If you choose to reveal the lie, you get on the path that leads to the good ending. In the good ending, everyone starts to get close to the truth, but Monokuma abruptly cuts off the class trial and everyone votes Makoto as the black end as he had no alibi. Makoto was then executed in his execution after school lesson. This is the same thing. I know that they had to make an execution that would work for both Makoto and Kyoko, but that doesn't make this any less boring. I wish that they both had executions that would better fit their talents, and the same one just feels weird. It feels like the executions in this game just kinda stopped after chapter 3, and that just disappoints me. The weird thing that happens though is that Alter Ego stops the execution from crushing Makoto. Why didn't it do this for Makoto? There was no reason for that. This chapter is great and all, but god, there are some things that make zero sense, and that's honestly holding it back from being great when chapter 5 is normally the highlight of Danganronpa games afterwards. In the beginning of chapter 6, Kyoko goes down the garbage chute where you are and helps you back up to the school. To get back to the school, you use the longest ladder ever. And as someone who is terrified of ladders, this scene was not fun. After that, you investigate the school to try and figure out who the mastermind is. During the investigation, it's revealed that your killing game is being broadcasted live to the entire world. You also find out other things like the bone of the headmaster who was Kyoko's dad, Jin Kirigiri, who was the person who died in Blast-Off. School supplies that are labeled of students in the school, and a video saying that you agreed to be locked in the school. In the class trial, it is revealed that the body you found in chapter 5 was Junko's dead body, but it was actually Mukuro disguised as Junko, and the real Junko comes out as she is the mastermind behind the killing game. She then tells you that your memories were taken away and you had all gone to Hope's Peak for multiple years before the killing game. You're told that there was an event that happened that is described as the most awful event in human history that plunged the world into despair and constant rioting, and it's referred to as the tragedy, and it happened at Hope's Peak. Everyone then votes Junko as the Blackened, and then she gets executed because she wants to feel the true despair of death. Her execution is called the Ultimate Punishment, and I'm just gonna say, this is the most underwhelming execution ever. Instead of giving the main villain an interesting and unique execution, she just gets to have a clip show of all the previous executions, and it's super disappointing. The only thing keeping this from being my least favorite execution is the one execution in Danganronpa 2. If you've played it, you know what I'm talking about. It's just so disappointing that the final execution of the game is this. Also, in my opinion, Junko isn't really that great of a villain. I haven't read Danganronpa 0 yet, but in this game she isn't very well written, and you don't really know anything about her, but everyone just loves her because big boob. And I guess that's fair. After a not so great execution, you get a button to open the door in the main hall so that you can finally step into the outside world. Everyone gathers in the main hall and you open the door and the game ends. I really love this ending. It leaves it very open to interpretation for if you want to believe Junko or not, and I really like that. It's very similar to V3's ending in the way you can draw your own conclusions as to what happens, and I think it's really great in that way. All the Danganronpa games have great endings, besides Ultra Despair Girls, and Trigger Happy Havoc is no different. It's a great way to get you interested in what's in store for next, and I love it. Overall, I think that Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc is a fantastic game. While it's my least favorite of the mainline games, I really love most things about this game, and it's an excellent opening to the story. Also, something that I forgot to mention is that there's a side mode called School Mode, and while I haven't touched it very much, it's really fun, and you get to see more into each character, which really helps all of them. Overall, I give Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc an 8 out of 10, and I would definitely recommend trying it out as soon as you can. But in my opinion, its sequel, Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair, is much better, and I will be making a video on that game soon enough, so make sure to look forward to that because I will have a lot to say about it. But thanks for watching, and make sure to like the video and tell me what you thought about it in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe. But that's gonna do it for this video, and I'll see you guys next time.